Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. This is the Success Happy Hour. And we've been gone for a while. I've been on a bit of a hiatus, delved into mastering more of the French language. I was just talking to a couple of the guests coming up about that. Project management. Life can get you carried away, revitalizing the Drunken Grape and expanding into live tastings in around my area now, too. So, I always say, if you're going to fall forward and fall forward with focus. So on that note, I'm going to bring on my two guests, Rob Dale and Eric Deschamps of Living Richly. Now, they're both from the Ottawa community and the greater Ottawa community. Rob, I've seen you around through events through the year, but we've never really formally met other than to say hi. I think I've met you in passing through Don LaChance a couple times. Yeah. Eric, great to meet you.
Great to be here.
Talking about... Yeah, no, it's really great to have you guys here. But to talk about this before we get in, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to tune in. You can tune in anywhere on this, from your smartphone, your tablet, your computer. You can hide from the boss for half an hour in a bathroom break if you want to watch this way. But make sure to subscribe, smash like, share the content, engage, because that's how organic channels grow. Now, getting back to Living Richly. I stumbled across you because, I saw things come up on LinkedIn, and then I saw a bit of like your video presentation, and you guys are great presenters. It drew me right in. And that's not an easy feat, being a professional presenter myself. I mean, it's just, if you can draw me in and captivate me, you're on to something. And really in the last year and a half, I've been in a kind of a renewal. A lot of it stemmed from 5 years ago, losing family members. And, it started off with my dad in 2016, my twin sister in 2019, then my mother in 2020. And I went in a bit of a tailspin, and coming out of it, I noticed, for me, there were some things out of alignment. And I was just wondering what was off. And, one workspace I'm actually about to remove out of my repertoire because it no longer aligns with me. And this course, Living Richly, it's a 15-day course. We're going to bring that up very shortly, but it helps people find their core values and to focus on 4 or 5. And you guys are going to laugh. I had like a running list of, I don't know, can you see the scribble here going through the course? Authenticity, accountability, accomplishment, family, faith, all these things matter. But when I really delved into it, the things that really popped up for me were authenticity, freedom, because I'm always focusing on getting free. I want my financial freedom. I want my independence. I got a second passport. I'm half Guyanese to allow me to live in the Caribbean. My mother is from Guyana. So you start to look at all these things. Why did I go overseas to work? Why am I always branching out and developing skills? It's because I also go into growth mode and clarity and community. So we'll get into all that, but what got you guys started on this journey?
Wow. Actually, the journey started, I would say, back in the summer of 2021, when the three of us as business partners, our third business partner, obviously is not on the call, but started having conversations about what does it mean to live a rich life? And by that, we don't just mean wealth, although finances is certainly a part of that. But to live a life that's really well lived, to be fully awake at the wheel of your own life and to be living deliberately and intentionally. And that set us on a journey that would, the following year, that was summer 2021, it would be December 27th, 2022, that we would launch the Living Richly podcast, and the rest is history. And the conversations we've been having ever since there's a lot of discovery there. I went through a personal renewal of my own, Rob, the spring of 2022. I call it my second great awakening, where a lot of stuff just started to land. And that was part of this whole process. And really for the last year and a bit, the show has been exploring what it means to live your best life and not just, again, live like a digital zombie, filling up time, but how to make the time count and live and reach your full potential.
Yeah. Wow. And, I think about it as well. Like, I think, I've crossed the threshold of 50. I may not look it, but I've actually ran across that barrier. And looking at now, I look at it like, wow, like how long do I want to work and how long do I have left? Then I realized that's actually a terrible approach. Mm-hmm. And living richly gets you to think that way. You think Warren Buffett, he still works. He's passionate. He's 94 years old. Lost his partner, was almost 100. And Charlie Munger just recently, I think he was like 97. These guys were flying around the world and still doing conferences and still showing up to shareholders' meetings. It's crazy. Yeah. Think about, I can't remember the name of the lady who wrote the Harry Potter books, but J.K. Rowling, but she was on the verge of, she was in poverty when she wrote those. You know, you look at Colonel Sanders' Chicken. Didn't really kick off until his late 60s. Sidney Frank, who launched Grey Goose Vodka, didn't really rocket in success with that until he was 72.
It's never too late, man. It's never too late.
Do you think a lot of the problems are when people get stuck on society's pressures, they haven't found their core values or their alignment? Do you think that's a huge problem? Is that a huge part of it?
I know that as we dove into Living Richly and we started to map that out, one of the first things, and I remember the day that it landed for Eric, because I got a flood of text messages and it was just like, oh my God, this, and because we value community, I love that you value community. We I embraced it, Trevor embraced it, and we really began to run with this. One of the things that we discovered early on is you are living by values. You decide whether they're going to be your values or someone else's values, but you will be living by a set of values. And what we did with Living Richly is we began to really challenge ourselves and challenge other people that if you own your own values, if you deliberately take the time to design and figure out what your values are, then and then you put those into work and you put those into play, then all of a sudden it's not work. And you can be 70, 80, 90 years old, still discovering, still doing things because you're living out of that set of values that you've defined for yourself.
Yeah, you're breaking out of the supposed life, right? The way that we've been programmed and told life needs to look like. And I think the vast majority of the adult population is living according to other people's shoulds, wants, and have-tos, and never really get clear. You know, the old adage, I spent my whole life climbing the corporate ladder, only find out it was leaning on the wrong wall the whole time. I think a lot of folks are pursuing a lifestyle or certain goals because they think that's what they should do. Living richly at its core, I mean, core value is a big part of it, but there's a lot more to it. Yeah. But it's really about designing what kind of life do you want? What do you stand for? What matters to you? And how are you going to bring more of that into your day-to-day life so that you're showing up as your authentic self? And as a result, everybody benefits when you do that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And cheers on that. It was hot today, and I was walking back from a walk to come on this podcast. I got a Stiegl Radler. I featured this before, but it's light alcohol. This is like a beer mosa. It's grapefruit juice infused with a light lager. It's only about 2.8%. It's really refreshing. Stiegl's actually Austrian, but everything's organic on their 300-acre farm. They grow their own malts. Nice. They are the grains for their malts, their own hops. Water is spring water. It's really hard. This is like the best Radler in the world. So this started in 1922 by a Bavarian innkeeper named Franz Krugler because he had cyclists coming through in the hot summer and they wanted something refreshing. So, we think of it as a shandy. I know you guys have some whiskey. Cheers to you both.
Cheers.
A bit of Jack, a bit of whiskey. Cheers, guys.
I've got my Woodford Reserve.
Oh, that's definitely a very good bourbon. Getting back to that and talking about the whole society matrix, something I discovered a long time ago when I traveled. I used to work in the cruise line industry and got out, saw the globe. North Americans are horrible for outward expression. Would you guys agree with that? Like, everything is about what you have, the status, the title in our community. And you see it, people trying to chug up the corporate ladder. The trouble with the corporate ladder is for every one high position, there's 100 people in the way trying to vie for it. And unless you're in alignment with the value system of that particular company, good luck trying to get up that ladder.
Right.
You know, or in life in general, or trying to build a business. I found that this blueprint opened my eyes as to why I do things.
And
that's on day 4 of the course.
Yeah, and that's what we're hearing from participants. We would end up, and this is brand new, just actually launched 3 weeks ago, is this 15-day Life Vision Challenge, and it's a free online experience we created that really came out of our joint experience together, where it encourages you to get clear on what you value. It also encourages you to get clear on what are the things that make you happy, right? Like what are the things that you engage in both personally and professionally that fill your cup? Like most people, if you ask them, they might be able to identify a couple things, but we don't give enough thought to that. What are the things that actually bring me joy? The third aspect of it is we use the elements of nature: fire, water, wind, earth. And these represent, the mind, the heart, the body, the spirit. And we use that framework to say, imagine your mind at its best. What does that look like? Your heart at its best, your spirit, your body at its best. And you start to paint a picture of the kind of life that you want. And then the final part of the challenge is to identify, okay, now that you have a sense of what matters to you, what are the things that bring you joy, what kind of life you want to have in terms of how you want to show up in the world, who are the people, who are the power sources you're going to need to connect to? Like, what are the rituals you're going to have to build into your life to lean into all of that? In short, Rob, it's about, again, being deliberate. We use the language choosing instead of coasting through life, deciding instead of drifting, right?
And, it brings a lot of peace to when you start to piece these things together. And don't you think inner peace is the biggest gift? Because with inner peace, you can tackle anything.
Right. 100%. 100%.
I would go further than that, Rob, and I would say, while inner peace is absolutely crucial, some language that Eric, introduced me to is radical self-acceptance. And what I really strive for is that internal acceptance, and that when I stop beating myself, that's where the peace comes out of, is the ability to embrace and accept me as I am, recognizing that while I am a work in progress, I'm on a journey of continuing to grow in self-development, that I am absolutely okay exactly as I am. And the peace, I think, flows out of that. And so the language of radical self-acceptance is intense, and it's meant to be intense.
Yeah. The vast majority of people need to give themselves permission. They haven't given themselves permission to really be who they are and show up the way that they're meant to show up. Again, I think the vast majority of us are pretending, or we're following a blueprint that is not our own. And because we're out of alignment, then we spend most of our time numbing, running, and distracting, but not really living. And so at its core, and we say 15-day challenge. A lot of the folks that have engaged in this process, it's like 15 reflective exercises designed to really get you thinking. And whether you do it over 15 days or 15 weeks or even 15 months, any work on getting clear on who you are is going to help you tremendously in terms of just that, accepting yourself, as Rob has said, increase that inner peace, that inner joy. There's nothing like living on point. Rob, I know I told you this. Absolutely. I say this all the time. I have never felt more on point than at this stage in my life, and it feels amazing.
Well, and what's incredible is that you built this course. So I've got the website up. You can see that here. And, people can enroll into this 15-day challenge for free, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's not hard. What is it? About a half hour, an hour a day, maybe of work. It's not even that. I found it was about a half hour for each day to complete it. And then your mind starts thinking about it for the rest of the day. It's, I just think there's more of this needed in the world. And you can see where you two took your professional coaching backgrounds and leadership backgrounds and created this. I'm just interested, though. It's so you discovered this, Eric, or you had the aha moment by overcoming adversity yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's where most of us, I think the great equalizer is pain. And all of us have had our version of it. And it was another season of Dark Night of the Soul that led to an awakening. And it was in that second great awakening in April of 2022 that this, as I was journaling the experience, as I was just like trying to navigate through this time and season, this model actually began to emerge. The values work became really, really important. The what makes me happy fills my cup work, the nature's elements and how to use that. And I began to say, like, what kind of life do I want? And who do I need to surround myself with now? What rituals do I need to build? I didn't learn this from anybody. It emerged really out of just my private time, just sitting with myself and my thoughts and getting clear. And what we have found, of course, in sharing the journey with Rob and Trevor and others, that just was like throwing gasoline on the fire. And as more and more people have engaged in the conversation, we're just seeing a tremendous resonance. The course is brand new, but the message has been out now for a while, and people are really, really resonating with the message. I think people are ready. They came out of COVID fed up, tired, lost. The world went upside down for so long. And listen, we all have seasons of going upside down personally, but it's like the whole world went upside down all at the same time. And we've seen a rise in mental health challenges and mental health issues. And I think a lot of that is people are just lost. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they stand for. And they're looking and searching for meaning, but don't know oftentimes where to turn.
And it's been interesting.
That's true.
It's been interesting as well, because a large segment of the people that really jumped on board with, even before the Life Vision Challenge, but just with the Living Richly message, were incredibly successful business owners and leaders and executives. They were clients that we were working with, and we would begin to share this message, and we would open up about our own struggles and journeys. I'm an overcomer. I've often will, I've shared this story many times, but I've gone through a life of, I lost a daughter who passed away. I've gone through seasons with my mom dying of cancer. My dad spent 17 years in prison. I was a guy that at one time a high school counselor said to me, "You're never going to make it. You're never going to accomplish anything." Thank you, high school counselor. Those are literally the words wow. That if you don't change your life, you're not going to. And yet here now, a business owner, very successful business owner, a very successful podcast host, all of the stuff that we're doing. So many of the people that that resonated with the message were people that were incredibly successful externally, and yet felt completely lost and empty internally, because they're looking, going, "Is this it?" And they weren't figuring out what mattered truly to them. And that's a really powerful part. I don't know if we expected that, but it's been incredible to see how many people are embracing the Living Richly movement, who have been successful in so many things and are saying, now it's time for me to focus on me.
Yeah, and don't you think that pandemic window was a great time? Like, forget all the politicking. I mean, there was a lot of strange things going on in there, and but one thing for certain was people were isolated. It gave them a lot of time to reflect. And you're right, a lot of people just sort of came back to the work world unchanged, especially in hospitality, just thinking that they could just go back into the same groove. And I'm seeing a lot of these faces lost now. And others took the same window of time and developed a whole new skill and transformed themselves.
Yeah.
And it's really up to you. The tools are there. And what I like about this tool is, you can read all sorts of books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. You can get into Anthony Robbins courses. There's a whole litany of stuff out there. There's, Wayne Dyer? There's, there's just endless lists of self-help gurus. But a lot of the program's expensive, and they haven't put it in a clearly defined way like this. This is what caught my attention. I mean, the fact that you could start to align yourself to your core values. Because, there's, are you guys familiar with Clifton Strengths, or the Clifton's Strengths approach?
Signature Strengths?
Yeah, and it looks at, I believe it does look at alignment as one of the biggest factors of what aligns to you, but I don't believe it gets into your core values as much, does it?
No, my understanding of it, Rob, is that it's definitely focused on what we would consider your signature strengths, like what you have traditionally been really strong at naturally. And again, I think actually part of the larger model of Living Richly, this particular expression of it is part of a 4 quadrant model. I won't get into all of it, but part of it is actually looking into your past. We actually just recorded a show on this. That most of us have a complicated relationship with our past. Often that is filled with shame, regret, and we just rather put the whole damn thing behind us. And we're not advocates for living in your past or getting stuck in your past, but your past is full of wisdom and lessons learned and that you can apply now and into your future. And one of the things is looking back and saying, hey, over the course of my life, what have been some areas where I am just naturally strong, gifted, things come easily to me in these areas. And if I can identify those things, and it usually, Clifton is a great way to do it, and there's other tools one can use to do that. Sometimes it's even just look at getting feedback from people who've known you for a while, and they'll be able to say, well, I've always seen you as really strong in these areas. Understanding your strengths and leveraging them, again, that's part of living as your authentic self. We're often trying to be someone else. We think that success looks like this or it looks like that. And to me, we can learn from other people, but the best version of you is you, right?
Yeah.
It's true.
And so releasing and tapping into your own strengths and living them fully and expressing them as best you can, that's how you give your best gift to the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
it's so interesting.
You nailed it. I mean, it's so true. And getting back to that whole outward expression of society, your millionaires and all these successful people that are gravitating to this course, you got to remember a lot of them have sacrificed entire relationships to get there. Their health.
Right.
A lot of them are woefully out of balance.
100%.
Yeah.
And something like this opens their eyes. It's what really gets me with this is the approachability of it. And, going to your podcast, we just have that up here. We should talk a little bit about that because people can readily find you. I believe that's your third partner with the blonde hair in the middle. I can't remember her name, but I've seen her come up in the courses. She's really good. Help me out there. What's her name again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wendy is Rob's better half, and Kate's my better half, and
Gotcha.
they joined the show at later on after it had started. And some episodes it's the 4 of us. Some episodes it's 2 of us interviewing a guest. Sometimes it's the 2 ladies talking about women's specific issues when it comes to living richly. Sometimes it's Rob and I talking about men's issues. But the whole show is designed really just to explore. What does it mean to live your best life? How do you get over trauma? Mental health issues, relationships, all the stuff that you would expect when people. Yeah, it's all vital. It's all part of the equation, right?
Absolutely. It's like the self-help ABBA came together here, That's what it made me think. But, it's true. It's balance, even with alcohol. Yes, I'm a purveyor of alcohol, wine and beer sommelier, professional mixologist. But with everything, there's balance, right? And there's a pattern of acceptability for it. I mean, something like this, you should really enjoy on a light to light, moderate basis. Really, you shouldn't really delve too much beyond that. That's just, having lived a few drunken binges when I was much younger, and that it's a reminder of, and then not feeling so great for a day or two afterwards is a reminder of just, everything in accordance with balance is healthy. And looking at your core values is one of them for sure. Your podcast, do you feature it on YouTube as well?
We do have a YouTube, the YouTube channel, Living Richly. All of that, the links to everything is on our website, livingrichlly.me. But yeah, we're on. We've got the YouTube channel. We also, one of the things that, and again, I'm going to go back to Rob. You talking about valuing community. we are big believers that the way you live your best life is by finding a community that will cheer you on and support you and celebrate it. It's difficult to live your best life solo. It can't. You might be able to, but it's hard to. And so one of the things that we're super excited about is we started a Facebook group called the Living Richly
Yes,
Nation.
I joined it, and I think it's great.
Oh, perfect. Sure. Awesome. And it's so exciting because we get to see all kinds of people sharing insights, sharing what their journey, what they're doing, and they're connecting. And next for us is probably some live events where we can pull people from our nation together and so they can meet people in person. But I think there's so much about what we're trying to do through the podcast, through the Facebook group, through the challenge that will really invite everyone to say, no matter where you are in life, no matter what stage you are in life, you can choose to live your best life.
Yeah, and it is critical. I mean, it's the world stopped. This is what I want to say about the pandemic is because the world stopped, people were no longer in that chain of motion they were used to. They were used to going to the storefront or that job they barely liked or just getting by. And because, you know, there's the hustle and bustle and the day-to-day pressure and your obligations, they lost track of who they really were in that tempest of that storm. And the pandemic comes along. And it was a big period of a wide awakening for many.
100%. Yeah.
Many didn't run towards where they should have, but a lot of people even just picked up and moved to different countries. They started to find that their values were better suited in other cultures or other environments. I mean, we saw some very interesting things, and definitely that was discovery of some core values within those people to do so, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, for sure. Like people redefined, I think, their relationship with work in a huge way, right, during the pandemic. And when the world, when the pandemic ended, there was so much of a push to try to go back to the way things were before, which is human nature. We want to reach back for some point in the past to what we know, even though we know that what we know doesn't serve us well, right? But we want the comfort of what we know versus embracing the discomfort of the unknown. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of the population has just gone back to the coma that they were in before COVID. But in COVID, I think a segment of the population has woke up and they're saying, hey, I may not have all the answers here, but there's got to be more than this. And I want to be around people that are going to help me keep thinking this way. Right.
Well, there were two types, right? There were those people that woke up and said, I need to change. And then there were others, a whole group of segment who numbed themselves with, streaming services and binging shows and certainly alcohol and other drugs. They numbed themselves because they were afraid to look in the mirror and start to ask the difficult questions that we need to ask in order to live our best life.
Life in the Matrix, when you wake up and recognize you've been in the Matrix all along, there are some folks that just want to get plugged back in. They know it's not real. They know it's not what they want, but it's what they know. But it's those that are willing,
steak, even if I don't.
Right? Yeah, I know this is not real steak. I know it's like we can all remember that scene. But I think there's a segment of folks that have found their courage that even though they don't have all those questions answered yet, they're on a journey of discovery. Yeah. And that journey of discovery is awakening them to all kinds of possibilities that life doesn't have to look like this. It may look like that for that person, but it can look very different for you. The difference is being like writing the script of your life and directing the movie of your life rather than being an extra in somebody else's story.
Love it.
And I think that's what Living Richly is all about.
Or in like a video game, that would be the player character, not the non-player character in the video game.
Yeah, don't be the NPC. You never want to be the NPC.
No.
Yeah, and there's and there's a lot to be said about that, man. Like it's just so many people. Like one of my workspaces, the one I've lost alignment with, it's negative. There's negativity towards the bar department. The companies decide to come in and try to take part of the tip out pool of the union. That's going to get contested. It's just, But amidst all that, I looked at people and said, great, I got a couple other things to move to, and I'm going to grind business and get into project management. They kind of looked at me like, but hey, you're our union rep. You got to be fighting for us. I said, I will, but you got to find things that align to you. And this just doesn't align to me. Negativity and hostility don't align. But get back to that. There are people who just whine and complain. And you know what? Most people will just stand by until somebody takes charge.
Right.
They're afraid to take that security blanket off and make that leap. But the leap is easy once you realize that security blanket's got holes all through it.
Yeah. Right. And it's really true when it comes to their own life. Far too many people are willing to give up control of their own life to someone else, to whatever that is, and to whatever those societal norms are. And one of the biggest lies that we have encountered as we've been really proclaiming this message of living your best life, one of the biggest lies, if not the biggest lie, is, oh, I can't do that. I don't have control. I have all this other stuff I have to do, and all this other stuff that has. And as long as you stay in that lie, you will never take control of your own life.
Yeah.
It's so true. And, you know, you've got to be the champion of you. And everything starts with your inner peace and your value system. And getting back to what you said, Eric, about trauma, you know, cumulative trauma. One of the things I did is I went through that grief and loss program with Don LaChance to help get over
Donnie's so Don's an old friend of ours.
And wow,
I've known Don for 30 years.
But digging up things with the relationship graph and going through and seeing what your short-term energy releasing behaviors were. It is all about self-discovery. You know, there's a reason the eagle breaks its beak in its start of its second half of life, because it rebuilds its beak and comes back stronger for the second half.
Right.
You know, we have that option too.
Your episode with Don was great. And I took some time to watch that last night. And
it was powerful. And just to go through that, I could see where this completely ties into what he's doing, because one of the things in helping people with grief and loss is getting over shame, getting over blaming yourself. And really, we also make it way more complicated than it needs to be. And it's because we're told a lot of lies. You know, go to school, get a good job. Well, you better be a lawyer if you want to be successful. You got to marry the right person. Well, you're not going to find the right person until you become the right version of you.
Right. Right. You're going to struggle for sure.
Came across that, you know, in the last 3 years, pretty much I've been in a very happy relationship. And I think a lot of it was, and then I had its struggles for a bit in the middle of it. But, you know, a lot of that came back because I worked on becoming the better version of me and getting over hurdles. And part of that was grief and loss. And it's always discovery and moving forward. And if you have a good partner, they're going to pick up on that and start to gravitate towards what you're doing too, which is cool to see. It's great. Now, you know, I love these series because it's sort of delved away. I've moved more towards a health approach. You know, I had my last show. There's a gent who was a very good friend of mine who lost 130 pounds through intermittent fasting, plant-based diet, got diagnosed with cancer, should be dead now, and he is still ahead of cancer 2.5 years later.
Wow.
And he looks like
amazing.
He looks strong as ever. And I went on a 41-day fast, water fast. You know, we talk about the importance of water. You could see that can of stream water behind me. I mean, water is the essence of life. But beyond that, your mental and emotional state, if you don't understand your core values, you're mismanaging the essence of that part of your life too.
Well, if you don't know who you are, like if you don't know who you are, how are you showing up? Right?
Not authentically.
Not authentically, but you're some version of you. But it's a real mixed bag of genuine you and pretense and pretending and putting up a false front that you think people need or want from you. But when you embrace self-acceptance, as Rob said, that radical self-acceptance, then you're able to move into what we call radical self-care. And because until you accept yourself, you're not highly motivated to take care of yourself. Right. No. And some are more than others. But generally speaking, you're going to put everybody ahead of yourself. I used to think self-care was selfish. right? Put
'Cause we're taught
everyone's
that.
needs ahead of my own. And yet it's the least selfish thing you can do, because when you take proper care of yourself, get clear on who you are, and work at showing up more like you, everybody benefits. All of your relationships benefit. Your workplace will benefit, because you're not
Absolutely.
showing up with your tank near empty. You're showing up more full all the time, because you're happy, you're joyful, you have more inner peace, and you've got more of that to give away, rather than having just crumbs to give away because you're barely making it yourself.
Well, the reason so many people are exhausted all the time is
Absolutely.
because they are so busy trying to keep everyone happy. They're so busy. What mask do I need to wear in this situation? What version of me do I need to show up here? And as soon as you get really clear on who you are and you begin to just show up authentically everywhere, that's where the peace comes, because
100%.
suddenly it's like, there's no work in me being me when it's the real me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's funny because authenticity is one of my core values, and one of my biggest
love it.
turnoffs is people not being real or authentic. And it's hard for me to deal with the masses in some ways because they're not authentic.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you go to one workplace and you got a boss, that's just barking at you with orders, or some coworkers being rude. Watch what happens when you see them out of work. Either they totally do a 180 on their behavior, or they look at their feet and away from you because they
Right.
have no authority anymore. So why would you surrender your authority of your life to just simple facets around you? And I think it's conditioning. You know, we're conditioned in school to be a robot for somebody else. Yet, does the boss come in acting like a robot, the owner, the entrepreneur that these people work for? Hell no. They're the ones that are like, they're happy that you're dedicating your time and wearing the masks and working for them. I'm just using that as an example.
It's a great example.
Right. And yet I've seen, Rob, I agree with you 100%. I've seen some very successful entrepreneurs that are feel very confident and competent in the workplace, but at the moment they walk in through the front door of their own house, they feel like a complete failure. I think all of us, no matter where we have achieved success, have areas of our lives where there's an awful lot of private pain, there's an awful lot of shame, and there's an awful lot of really negative beliefs and scripts that run and ruin our lives. And so regardless of where we've succeeded, and this is part of why the 4 elements became such an important part of this, because when you look at it, every time I share the model with someone, they recognize where they've invested time and energy, and they go, oh, but my emotional, like the emotional side of me, I've really not even explored that, or my relationships aren't doing, like, they always are able to identify one area of their life or more that has been underdeveloped. It's like going to the gym and you never did leg day.
Yeah.
Right? So-
Even if you have a hard time growing legs like myself, you always do legs. You start out with legs.
You gotta do leg day.
Yeah, and you do legs all the time. Proud to say
Yeah.
my legs are strong because I work them out all the time. And it causes a difference to the rest of you. Well, it's a foundation. This is a foundation. That's a great example. Yeah, if you don't put the reps in all areas, well, you're not getting the job done.
Right.
You know, guys,
you're
you've been
going to be
terrific.
strong some parts, and other parts are going to lag behind, right?
Yeah, we're going to close this up, but you guys are terrific. What an enjoyable
Thanks for
segment
having
today.
us, man.
I really enjoyed this talk. And I really hope the viewers do too. Make sure to comment, subscribe. Make sure to find Rob Dale and Eric Deschamps on LinkedIn. I'm going to have their profile links in the description of the show notes. Eric, Rob from Living Richly and Living Richly Happy Hour to feature them. Whatever you decide to do, ladies and gentlemen, just have an awesome day. Bye for now.
Yeah.